Ladies and gentlemen, this is the day that the Lord has made. We are rejoicing and we are glad in it. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Ramon Preston Show. If you're coming on, joining us live on this beautiful day, I want you to hit the like button. I want you to hit the share button. And I want you to tag Lolly Dolly, everybody, and let them know your boy, Ramon Preston, my squad, we're all live right here in the beautiful Buckhead community of Atlanta. And you, my friend, are watching the Ramon Preston Show. Again, hit the like button, hit the share button, tag somebody, especially if you know somebody who's interested in investing in real estate. We've been talking about the 10 steps to a creative real estate deal all week long. And I'm bringing this conversation, this training, this discussion, this empowerment lesson to a conclusion. So again, hit the like button, hit the share button, tag somebody, let them know that we're live on the Ramon Preston Show. For those of you that don't know, my name is Ramon Preston. I'm the host of the Ramon Preston Show. And when we come live, we're coming live with a mission to help you properly start, properly structure, and properly scale your businesses, ministries, your income streams, and if you're looking to get into real estate investing, your wealth building dreams. So today is going to be the final day I discuss the 10 steps to a creative real estate deal. Hopefully by now you know what creative real estate investing is and how it works. If for some reason you don't know a thing about creative real estate investing, then you need to go to my YouTube page. We have a lot of video content on there for free that gives you information regarding creative real estate investing. Of course, we have training programs, we have workshops, we have regular meetups here in our Buckhead headquarters that we use to train our mentees and to show our students how to actually become creative real estate investors. So these are the 10 steps to a creative real estate deal. I've already talked about steps 1 through 6. Today, I'm going to talk about steps 7, 8, 9, and 10, the last 4 steps. So if you're taking good notes, I'm going to run through the first 6 quickly, just as an overview. If you want to get more information on those, go back to the other videos we did this week on the show, and you could get that information. So the 10 steps to a creative real estate deal, the first step is generate a lead. You got to generate a lead. Now, there are a lot of things that you got to do in order to generate a lead. First is you got to know what type of property you want to buy, what type of real estate you want to buy, and what type of real estate investor you want to be. I'm talking about creative real estate investing. So 100% of the time, when we are looking to invest in a piece of real estate, 100% of the time, it always begins with a creative approach. We're always going that way, that route. If we can't do it creatively, we'll look conventionally, but we're going to always go creative. So you want to generate a lead. That's step number 1. Step number 2, with creative real estate, you have to make the initial contact like you do with anything. It's sales 101. You got to make contact. You got to get an opportunity to speak to the seller. You got to have certain questions to ask the seller. These are fact-finding questions. And then when you make initial contact, number 3, you need to gather the facts. So when we reach out to somebody who owns a home that we want to buy, we're reaching out to them as creative real estate investors, as problem solvers, as a company who has solutions for the distress or the situation that seller is in. We also know what type of distress they have because we've already determined that in generating the lead. That's step 1. So when we make initial contact, step 2, we have certain questions we're asking and we know how we're going to acquire that property if we get a chance to. We're going to acquire it from a creative perspective, and 100% of the time we're going to first try to buy that property subject to the existing mortgage, especially because of the type of properties we're looking at. Most of them are pre-foreclosures. And there's an auction date coming in a couple weeks, so we don't really have a whole lot of options. The owner don't have a whole lot of options. So we already know what kind of facts that we're gathering. There's certain information we need, especially when we're doing a subject to transaction. Step 4 in this process is you want to underwrite and analyze the deal. So if I was able to generate a lead, and in the case of my company, we target primarily properties that are distressed, and almost all of them are pre-foreclosures. All right, so there's an auction coming. We already know this information when we make contact. So we generate the lead, step one. We make contact, step two. We gather the facts. There are certain facts we need about this property that's in foreclosure. We need to know the loan information, how far behind they are. We need to know what the mortgage payment is. This is all the stuff that we're going to do even before we make contact. But once we gather these other facts from the seller and they're open and interested in doing a deal with us so we can help them transition and prevent them from losing their home, step four is we're going to underwrite and analyze the deal. Now we got to put this deal together because we got other information now. Okay. Step five is we're going to visit the property. Now we want to schedule a visit. Okay, we want to schedule a visit. As a matter of fact, today is Friday. Yesterday, Thursday, the reason why we didn't go live and the reason why I'm giving you the last 4 steps today rather than the last 2 for this week's series of discussions is because we was at a property doing step 5. We had to visit the property to see, is it something that we can make happen? Step 5 is visit the property, okay? Step 6 is we need to sign the initial documents. Now, we did not sign the initial documents yesterday with the seller of that particular property for a couple different reasons. Number one, the property was vacant. The seller has moved on. So we were able to go there, preview the property, take pictures, get videos, do a little more due diligence just based on what we know. And now we are in the process of signing the documents. That would be step 6. Okay, so when we sign the documents in step 6, that brings us to the last 4 steps, excuse me, in this 10-step process. So just in case you're watching me live or whenever you're watching me, if you're a creative real estate investor or if you want to be and you're looking at buying properties creatively through strategies like Subject 2, let me know in the comments and let me know where you are. What area in the country are you in doing this? I would love to know. I definitely would love to know. So we're going to talk about steps 7, 8, 9, and 10, the last 4 steps. So step 7 is, now that you have gotten through the first 6 steps, step 7 is you want to submit the initial documents. Now, if it's and I can only talk about how we do it here in Georgia. Maybe if you're in a different state, you do it differently. But here in Georgia, my attorney gives me 2 main documents or 2 initial documents that we are going to sign and we're going to get the seller to sign once we get to step 7. But we got to get through the first 6 steps. Let's not forget that. But when we get to step 7, we got 2 documents that we're going to sign, okay? The first document is we're going to get a authorization to release form. We're going to get an authorization to release because our attorney and our team, they need to do some due diligence. There are things that they need to do. So we're going to get them to sign the documents. I always tell people this. When it comes to real estate investing, any deal that you do or any deal that gets done, it has an entry and it has an exit. Okay? I want you to remember that. All real estate deals have an entry and they have an exit. Those are on every deal. You're going to have an entry and you're going to have an exit. What brings you to the entry phase of any deal is signing the documentation. So even though this is step 7 in my 10-step creative process, this is where the deal really starts getting juicy because you have a contract. So the first document you want to sign is an authorization to release. The second document we get the seller to sign is a purchase and sales agreement that spells out or specifies and details what the deal is about. What are we doing? You know, there's going to be a purchase price or potential purchase price if it's a subject to. There's going to be a potential closing date or a date to be determined. There's going to be a certain dollar amount that the seller is getting or a seller is not getting. There may be some special stipulations that we are promising or agreeing. I wouldn't say promise, but we're agreeing to do, or they're going to agree to do, which could be to make sure the property is vacant, make sure everything is out, whatever the things are. You put that in that purchase and sales agreement, and all of y'all initial, all of y'all sign. Those are the two documents you need, especially if it's a subject to transaction. Now, again, I don't know what state you're in, or I don't know what type of deals you're doing, but the deals that we do are 100% of the time starting out as subject to deals. That's how we're going to approach every deal. Subject to. We want to buy it subject to. It's a pre-foreclosure. Auction is just a couple weeks away. We ain't got time for all that other stuff. It is what it is. When we're able to get to the point to where we can submit the initial documents, those are the documents we're signing, and these are the documents that we're going to submit to the attorney. You're submitting this information to your attorney, to your title company, to your transaction coordinator, whoever it is that you're working with. This is who you're going to submit this information to, okay? And for me, I have documents that my attorney has already drafted, and these documents have subject to language already in it, assignment language in them. So some people have more than 2 documents. They may have additional disclosures or addendums outside of the authorization to release or the purchase and sales agreement. We have ours in there, at least for the initial documents. So here's what I want you to remember with step 7 when it comes to submitting initial documents, okay? Because you could be submitting these documents to different people. If you're working with a transaction coordinator, a TC, or an attorney, you must be clear about their processes. You must be clear about their policies. You must be clear about their procedures for contacting the bank, contacting the foreclosure trustee, for conducting the title search, and for pre-closing. You need to know this, because if you're an investor and you get a contract and document signed, especially if you're a creative investor and it's a pre-foreclosure, you're buying it subject to, if it's something real complex and creative like that, if you're working with a TC, a transaction coordinator, or an attorney or title company, you need to know when you're submitting those documents to them to get the ball rolling, you need to know and be clear about their policies, their processes, their procedures. You need to know, how do they do this? Do they do it? You don't want to assume they're doing something that they're not going to do. Okay? It could be so many different things that they do different than other people. You want to know, are you contacting the foreclosure attorney, or do I need to? Or is a transaction coordinator doing it? Are y'all going to have a title search in a certain amount of time? When are y'all going to have it? And when you get the information back, are you going to send me an email so I can review it? All of this stuff you need to be clear on. You need to know this stuff. If it's an HOA, are y'all going to get the letter from the HOA? Excuse me. You need to know that stuff. So you need to be clear on that, okay? Step 7. So once you submit the initial documents, that's step 7. Step 8 begins the due diligence. So step 8 is you want to perform due diligence. And this is very important. Now, when I say perform due diligence, I'm talking about, this is at the point where you have a contract signed and you are planning on purchasing this property, or you planning on assigning it, depending on what you plan on doing. If you're assigning it as a wholesaler or you're purchasing the property, you got certain things you need to do. So what types of due diligence do you need? I'm gonna give you some different types. Okay, I'm gonna give you the four main types of due diligence. So you have the mandatory due diligence. That's one. What is the mandatory due diligence? Well, your attorney or your title company will conduct a title search. A title search is mandatory. Like, you got to do a title search if you're going to buy a property as an investor, especially if you're buying a distressed property and it's subject to an existing mortgage. If you're doing that type of creative deal, you got to get a title search. Okay? Under mandatory due diligence, your attorney or your team or your transaction coordinator will also request a reinstatement letter from the foreclosure trustee. Again, if it's a pre-foreclosure and you're buying it subject to the existing mortgage and you're going to reinstate the loan, you have to get a reinstatement letter from the foreclosure trustee. And a lot of times, at least in my experience, there's a difference between getting a payoff letter and a reinstatement letter. There are times that we've requested a reinstatement letter and we've gotten a payoff letter and we needed the reinstatement letter. Then we had to go back and ask for a reinstatement letter. Maybe that was just the trustee that didn't think it through, or maybe who we had to call didn't ask for the right documentation. Whatever the case is, that's mandatory. You need a reinstatement letter, because if you're dealing with a pre-foreclosure and the seller is telling you, well, the bank told me I only owe them $10,000. Well, the foreclosure trustee might have a number that's $16,000. You got to get that letter from the foreclosure trustee, no matter what they telling you that the bank is telling them, okay? You should always request a copy of the results of for both prior to closing. So if you have a TC or you have a title company or a closing attorney's office, if they are requesting a reinstatement letter, if it's a pre-foreclosure, and if they are doing a title search for this property that you have under contract, all right? Even if they are reaching out to the HOA to get a letter, you want to make sure you request a copy to see what does it say. Like, I'm telling you, there are times we was pushing it. I've had one time where I was pushing it close and I didn't get a chance to look at the information that came back from, let's say, the title search until I got to closing, and realized once I looked at the HUD settlement statement that there were some dollars on there that I didn't think about. I had already wired the money and really didn't even think it through. I just asked how much was the wire, wired it, and then once I got to closing and read, I was like, oh, that's why the number was $8,000 more than what I thought it was, because there was a lien that I didn't know. I'm just saying, you got to think that through. So you have mandatory due diligence, then you have physical due diligence. What is the physical due diligence? Now remember, in step 5, you should have visited the property by this point, but there's still more physical due diligence to be done. After you get a contract signed and after you submit that contract to a closing attorney and you start the due diligence process, which for me in the creative world, this is step 8, the physical due diligence requires you to do a thorough inspection with a general contractor so you can get a repair estimate. You want a contractor to give you a repair estimate. You also want a professional home inspection. Okay? You might need some other specialized inspections. You might need a termite. It just depends on what type of inspection you need. You definitely want a home inspection. And depending on the age of the house, depending on what the condition of the house is, that will determine if you need other types of inspections, okay? But you definitely want to get a home inspection. And you should always ensure the property is vacant and wait to begin any work on the property after closing. So let's just say you're doing your physical due diligence and you got an inspector coming there, you have a contractor coming there. Don't start working on a property that you haven't bought yet. I know this stuff sounds simple and fundamental, but it ain't always simple. It ain't always fundamental. A lot of people make a lot of bad decisions just because they're anxious, just because they want to make stuff happen. Listen, when you putting your money up, even if you putting other people's money up because you got private money lenders or other investors working with you, don't play those games. Do your due diligence and wait until you're done with your due diligence and close on the property before you do any work, okay? There's also financial due diligence. So all of this is being done after I sign a contract, and now we're preparing to go to closing. Okay, I'm doing financial due diligence. This should include obtaining a quote for a landlord or rehab insurance, for a landlord or for rehab insurance, especially if it's a subject to property. You want to get a quote for how much the insurance is going to cost. So if you plan on fixing and flipping the property, you're going to get some rehab insurance. If you plan on buying and holding it, you're going to get landlord insurance, okay? This should also include obtaining the balance of all the utilities associated to that property. This is a part of your financial due diligence. Again, I'm primarily talking about creative real estate investing, okay? Subject to real estate strategies. If you're doing it the conventional way, some of these may vary, but it's still basically a part of your due diligence. So you wanna know what the utility bills are. Lights, water, gas, trash, and cable. You want to know who those providers are, but you definitely want to make sure you talk to the current seller about these utilities, because during your due diligence, let's say you may need the water to stay on, you may need the gas on, the lights, if you got an inspector coming so they can check the HVAC, the sewage system, if it's a septic tank. So you got to make sure those utilities are current and be prepared to either pay it just in case the seller can't afford it. Let's say if they behind in their water bill and the water off and they owe $400, they might not want to pay that $400. So that's negotiable. You got to either make them pay it or you pay it, one of the two, okay? So that's very, very important. You should always ensure that there are no liens or special requirements to switch utility services prior to the seller closing their accounts. So what I'm saying by that is, we have had situations, especially here in Metro Atlanta. You got certain counties here in Metro Atlanta, they give you the hardest time, especially with water bills and, oh my God, certain utilities. So there are times where if you tell the seller, oh, you could cut off all the utilities, or if the seller thinks, okay, since we're under contract and this investor is buying it, I could cut the lights off, I cut the water off, and cut the gas off. Well, if that city or county has certain restrictions, you might not be able to go get it cut back on until after you close and until after you have the settlement statement and the right documentation to submit. So you may need to make sure that they leave it on until you get everything clear, and then you can switch it over. Because again, if you got inspectors and contractors coming and you're trying to do physical due diligence, that can slow the process down, all right? So that's the financial due diligence. Then you have the legal due diligence. And this is all taking place after you get the contract signed and submitted to your title company or closing attorney, okay? So what is the legal due diligence? Here are a few items you need to think about, especially if you're buying distressed properties, pre-foreclosures, and you're buying it creatively, like subject to. This legal due diligence should include a HOA closing letter and information regarding rent restrictions. Because let's say you plan on buying the house, and even if you're buying it subject to, you're taking over the payments, and your exit strategy is to rent it because that's where you see the biggest bang for your buck. Well, guess what? If it's a HOA, you need a HOA closing letter. You need to get that information. So your attorney is going to need to get that information, and you need to make sure you know if there are rent restrictions. Point blank, period. So that's one of the reasons why creative real estate investors, they should have a TC. Like, I think every creative real estate investor should either be a TC or have a transaction coordinator. We have one on our team. We're blessed to have a transaction coordinator on our team. We're just so grateful to God to have that. My wife is actually our TC because she's a real estate agent. she knows, my wife knows so many people here in Atlanta, and she knows a lot of professional people. She knows appraisers, contractors, inspectors, engineers, all these people that got to do with houses. She knows people that run associations. So a lot of times she already knows this stuff, but a transaction coordinator knows that stuff too, okay? So let's see here. Under the legal due diligence, you should always ensure that you have all the paperwork and all the wire instructions prior to closing. So this is information you want to make sure you have. You want to make sure that the seller email is accurate. This is all just the legal stuff. So this is step 8. Perform due diligence. Okay, let's get to step 9. Step 9 in your 10 steps to a creative real estate deal, which, by the way, if I'm going too fast and you kind of get what I'm saying, but it's just too much for you to digest at one time, no worries. Just reach out to us. I'm going to give you a number that you could call or text. We have workshops for this all the time. We have regular meetups where we teach people these strategies. I have an entire course and training program online that you can access it on demand at any time of the day from any device. So this is an ongoing training and education that you can get access to anytime. All right. Step 9 to my 10 steps for creative real estate deals. Attend the closing. This is the 9th step. This is where you're coming to the closing table. Now, you're getting ready to buy the house. You're getting ready to buy the houses, whatever it is that you're buying. All right, you're going to attend the closing. This is step 9. All right, so what are some things that you should do? If it's a creative real estate deal, especially when you're doing subject to type transactions, you should always arrive on time and take responsibility for your seller to arrive on time. All right? You want to make sure you're responsible that your seller gets there, period. Especially if it's a distressed seller. They're going through a lot. You just need to stay on top of that, or have your TC stay on top of that, or somebody on your team. Also, step 9, you should always ensure that the settlement statement has the correct numbers and information. Again, my wife is a real estate agent. She's the TC for our investment company. So at closing, my wife is going to sit at that closing table. She's going to go over everything. Like my attorney, we be in there talking, and we talking about everything else. He's good enough that he knows how to push papers around, get us to sign them and talk. But my wife is looking at it. I ain't paying attention to none of it. And she's looking at the settlement statement to make sure the numbers are correct and all the information is correct, okay? You should always ask for any remaining keys, any fobs, any garage openers, some of the stuff you're not thinking about sometimes, but you want to ask for that. There may be a HOA where the mailbox is in the front and there's a mailbox key. Maybe you didn't get that during the due diligence. Maybe you didn't get that prior to closing. Maybe it's fobs to get in the gate if it's a gated community or something. You want to ask for that stuff. Garage door openers. You should always confirm the cancellation of the seller's insurance and the transfer of your own insurance. Now that's if you're doing a subject to transaction. So remember, a part of your due diligence in step 8 is you're going to get a quote for an insurance policy prior to closing. But that quote is going to have a date that you told the insurance agent, we're going to close on this date and we're buying this property subject to that existing loan. If that's the creative route that you're going, that's a certain type of insurance. You're going to get a certain type of insurance, and there's a certain way that insurance agent is going to submit that declaration information to the bank so that you can have a new insurance policy. And the seller, they should have a policy already that the bank is paying for because they're in foreclosure, and that policy is going to get canceled. All that is in step 9, attending the closing, okay? And last but not least, we're going to get to step 10. This is the 10th step. Step 10 is the final step. And if you can imagine just how I'm running through this now, imagine how it is if we were sitting in a workshop all day going through all this information. I try to make it real simple and real digestible for people when it comes to a lot of these complicated creative real estate strategies. Okay, so step 10 is after the closing. This is after the closing. There are things that you need to do after the closing, especially if it's a subject to transaction. So what are some things you should do after you close and you now own the property? Well, you should always maintain a good rapport and a professional connection with the seller, especially if you're buying that property subject to. If it's a creative real estate deal or owner finance deal, you still need a good rapport with that. You got to maintain a good rapport with the seller because they still a part of the deal. You should always double check your documentation in the closing packet and ask the attorney to address any concerns you may have. Okay? After the closing, your attorney will submit the reinstatement amount to the foreclosure trustee. Now, again, this is assuming you buy properties like we do, which are distressed, pre-foreclosures, and you are actually taking over existing payments. That means you want to make sure you're clear that the attorney is going to submit the reinstatement money that you wired to the foreclosure trustee. After the foreclosure trustee confirms the transaction with the bank, they will reinstate the account and bring the mortgage current, and that's probably going to take maybe about a week. It doesn't take that long depending on the bank. After the closing, you should change the locks and allow your contractor to begin the renovation or make repairs. You definitely want to do that, all right? Once the property is renovated and prepared, you are now ready to list it on the market and execute your exit strategy. So I just gave y'all this whole week 10 steps to a creative real estate deal. More specifically, these are the 10 steps we use to purchase properties subject to the existing loan, which almost all the time are pre-foreclosures. So if this is some information that you would like to have access to, again, I mentioned earlier, we have regular meetups every other Saturday right here in person. We underwrite deals, we role play, we pull lists and properties, we make calls to sellers. We're doing deals. That's number one. We also have, excuse me, we also have workshops. We have a creative real estate investing workshop where we do a deep dive into all things creative, including buying properties subject to and pre-foreclosures, because that's our lane anyway. That's our sweet spot as a real estate investment company, okay? We also have courses, digital video-based courses that you can watch on demand on all of the things that we're talking about as well. So if you're interested in getting access to those courses, or if you're interested in becoming a member of our Millionaire Mentorship Program, we offer this program 50% off. Right now is 50% off. It's either a one-time payment or a monthly fee. You can cancel anytime, and you get access to all of our workshops this year, our meetups, our courses, our weekly coaching calls, and you get access to me and my team and a community of people who doing it for real, who making things happen, and we want to help make things happen with you. We want to work with you, okay? So all you have to do, if you have any questions or if you want access to any workshop, any workbook, worksheet, course, or you want to join us for one of our real estate meetups, just call or text the word mentor to 678-276-8253 or 8556. That's all you have to do. Just screenshot those two numbers. And you could call or text either one of those numbers, and one of my team members will respond immediately, answer any questions you have, give you any information you need, and hopefully get you onboarded and set up to be a part of what we're doing here inside of our Millionaire Mentorship Program. So thank you for joining the show today. I hope this was valuable to you. If you didn't watch the other shows this week on all the steps, make sure you go back to get all 10 steps. And we look forward to helping you, working with you, doing business with you. And we'll see you next Monday, same place, same time, right here, 12 o'clock noon Eastern on the Ramon Preston Show. Have an amazing weekend. I'll see you there.